I was working on another project in my office and I noticed that it was cold. I thought maybe I could work in my bed, but I didn't have space to put my laptop and mouse. And my solution to this was to build a table that uses a whiteboard I had as a tabletop. This project was supposed to be a quick 2-day solution to a problem and done the day before Melon Jam. But as the saying goes, the first 90% of the project will take 90% of the time, and the last 10% will take the other 460%. Projects are never finished on time, and this is a prime example of that. I'm Alex, and this is Magma Labs. The time I thought about this project was also near the submission deadline for the junk drawer competition on Hackster.io, so I was thinking how I could use the existing materials I had to build it. This was the final design I came up with. The box at the top was mainly to increase the height so it wouldn't get in the way of me trying to sleep, while at the bottom the wheels would be placed to allow it to roll. I was thinking of some ways that I could connect the frames together, and I settled on Ethernet cable because I had a lot of it. I then immediately started to print the model because my plan was to finish printing the first half on the first day and then print the second half on the second day and then just assemble it and be done. Rookie mistake. The first print failed, but that gave me a great opportunity to test using the cables to connect these frames, and it was pretty sturdy. The first round of printing went as well as I'd expect it would, but in the second round of printing, well, my 3D printer has a problem where the touchscreen would just randomly tap itself, and my solution was just to unplug the touchscreen during printing, but this time I pulled it too hard, and this happened. Fortunately, I still was able to remote print from the slicer, but I just couldn't fix or monitor the prints on the printer itself. Once the first few parts were printed, I placed them on the whiteboard for aligning purposes, threaded this Ethernet cable between them, and used metal epoxy to glue them together. The thing with using metal epoxy is that it takes quite a long time to dry, so gluing pretty much took up an entire day of time. I glued the first half while the second half were still printing on the printer. That way when I was done with these, I could just move on to gluing the second half. I started off by gluing all of them to one side, and then I tried to glue them to the other side, but the thing is, they just kept getting misaligned, so I found the nearest heavy objects I had and placed them between them to keep the wires straight. This worked okay, and I was able to get some decent gluings with it. Unfortunately, while I was busy gluing that together, my 3D printer's extruder got clogged, and so the entire half of my second bracket didn't print, so I was desperately trying to fix it in the slicer. Because my screen was permanently disabled from the previous incident, there was no way for me to resume the print from the printer, so I tried a few different things in the slicer, including cutting off the entire bottom section in the G-code. It took me a while to figure things out, but by the time I finally did, this happened. So the thing just beeped again, and I have no idea what that means, because oh no, no, this is, I can't, there's nothing I can do, I have to scrap this print. The only thing I could have done was printed the top layer and just glued it on, but at this point in the project, I had less than 200 grams of filament remaining, and my order wasn't gonna arrive for another week, so I had only this one chance to print it correctly. So on the night the project was supposed to be done, I was down in the machine room trying to desperately replace the filament to make sure it doesn't pause again mid-print. The extruder just got jammed again, so I had to restart this print again. What the hell is this? Yes! Finally! As soon as the printed parts were finished, I immediately started gluing the parts. First, the two sections to each other, and then attaching them to the main frame. Each time I use metal epoxy, it takes a few hours to dry, so I tried to glue two things at once here, doing both the frame and the two pieces together. Once the frames were completely done, I used some screws to attach these small wheels to them. Then it was time to actually test it with my whiteboard. Yes, I did forget that gravity existed. I tried to think of some ways I could fix this, and I got an idea. Remember that wood board that fell out of my shelf a while ago? I could use that as a supporting material to keep them from bending like this. The thing is, that wood board is very flexible and nowhere near as stiff as I needed it to be, so I decided to add some popsicle sticks behind it to make it more stiff. At this point, this was starting to feel like pretty much every single coding project I've ever done. So on the night this project was supposed to be done, I was desperately gluing popsicle sticks to fragile wood. The next day it was done drying, so I took it and hot glued it to the two sections. When I finished assembling it though, I realized another problem. I used very small wheels for these brackets, but they were so small that they just weren't even touching the wood. I thought of some things I could do, and the best thing I could think of was to attach a fixed brace to the holes that were meant for the smaller wheels so I can attach some larger wheels to them. And once again, I ran out of filament mid-print. I designed the fixed brace so that I could attach it to the main frame using a hole that I originally used for the smaller wheels, and then I could attach the larger wheel to another hole on it. However, when I attached the wheels to it, I ran into yet another problem. I designed the bottom of the original brace to both hold the small wheels in place and to keep it aligned with the frame. But because the large wheel extends past the bottom of the frame, it no longer holds the wheel in place, so the whole thing started wobbling. At this point, I was really close to just giving up on the whole project, and I decided to apply a last-minute fix to just extend the frame by gluing some more popsicle sticks to it. But the popsicle sticks just weren't stable enough to hold the wheels in place, and they still kept tilting, so I decided to just abandon rolling altogether and just make a table that worked. Then I ran into a problem of the wood boards just blocking pretty much everything on the bottom, which made it nearly impossible to actually use the table for table purposes. And this was when I finally came up with a solution, which should have been what I did from the start. Why not just use one of these green crop sticks to stabilize the frames? That way I could put it high enough so that it wouldn't bother with anything, but it would also be sturdy enough to keep everything in place. I immediately started applying metal epoxy to this to get it to join with the frame. So on the night this project was supposed to be finished, I was waiting for my metal epoxy to dry. Once that happened, I just detached the wood from the main frame. Unfortunately, after I finally did do the right thing and get those things attached, I realized that the cables were still a source of a lot of problems. If I used these rods from the start, I probably could have prevented pretty much every single problem that I came across. At this point was probably when I realized that the only way I could finish this project was by reprinting the entire frame and using the crop sticks as the stabilizers. But I had run out of filament and melon jam was happening soon, so I just gave up. The filament arrived one day before the submission deadline. I gotta get printing. This time I was going to do everything correctly from the start. I redesigned the brace to have a much longer leg so that it would be aligned even when the larger wheel was placed in there, and to incorporate holes for the crop sticks to fit in. This is literally printing the day before the submission deadline. Hopefully this goes through. Of course, the adhesion had to fail again. I mean, I am at the point where I can restart this print and still have it be done tomorrow morning when I wake up, but I needed to not fail again. It's like 11 p.m. now and the print is still attached, so hopefully it will be when I come back to this tomorrow at 8 a.m. An uneventful night of printing. Finally. Once the first two of the new brackets finished printing, I used hot glue to attach them to the crop stick. I used hot glue this time because it wouldn't take forever to dry like metal epoxy. I probably should have used hot glue from the start, but I just completely forgot about it. when the second set finished printing, I used a long crop stick and hot glue to connect them together as well, and then I used two shorter ones to connect the two halves together. Once I was done attaching the frame together, it was finally time to put the whiteboard on it and actually test it. And if this didn't work, then I was probably going to give up forever.
It works!
I mean, I got it done a week late, but I got it done. Even though this project took much longer than it was supposed to, I did finish it, and it's now a whiteboard table that I use almost daily. In fact, I'm editing this video on it right now. So anyway, I'm Alex Lee. This was my rolling whiteboard bed table, and thanks for watching.